Hello and welcome to GATSBY Fridays, a show about getting the best out of a creative life. From two creative directors working around the world and based in New York City.
I'm your host, Sarah Semi.
And I'm Alex Tremilio.
Today we'll be talking about how we stayed creative during the pandemic of 2020.
We'll talk about the media and resources we consumed that kept us sane, in the know, happy, and focused on our goals.
And at the end of each episode, we make a signature cocktail or toast. Cheers to you.
So hang with us as we discuss staying creative in a time of quarantine. I'm your host, Alex.
And I'm Sarah.
And this is GATSBY Fridays. So Sarah, I wanted to start by asking, what did a day in quarantine look like to you? But first, let's do a quick check-in. How are you, and what are you wearing?
I'm okay. I'm feeling excited about the opportunities we created despite the pandemic and the world not really moving the way we're used to.
Yes.
A little overwhelmed to how to, move in this life. Did I touch anything extra that I shouldn't be touching? Do I have extra masks with me and stuff? But otherwise, I'm excited, actually. I'm grateful and excited. And I am wearing an animal print summer maxi dress, white sneakers, and a white denim jacket today. Cropped white denim.
Nice.
It's July in New York City.
Hot July in New York City.
How are you doing and what are you wearing?
I am feeling optimistic. I'm feeling good. It is warm, but I am so excited that we're starting this. This is a project that I think we've been talking about, wanting to work on for such a long time, and here we are finally putting this together. And I am really appreciative of all that. What am I wearing? I'm wearing a short sleeve Hawaiian printed shirt, button down, and some chambray shorts and socks with dogs playing poker.
Cool.
Just a great summer look, easy. So Sarah, what did a day in quarantine look like to you?
Day in quarantine. In the beginning, it was a lot of indulgence.
Yes.
Eating things I normally wouldn't eat, drink every day. It was like this mental thing where it's like we're in this like temporary time zone where everything's allowed. It's like this is going to be over soon, so let's take it out on food and drinks.
That's exactly what I was thinking, because you think the time is temporary.
Yeah.
But this is our new normal.
Well, a month in, and you realize, oh, this is not going anywhere anytime soon. I can't keep going down this road. I was making these like long 4-hour braised chilies, making drinks every day, drinking a lot of things every day, and then it's like, okay, after a month you're like, I can't keep doing this.
I typically have not done the cooking traditionally in my household. Just some background. I have two small kids, 5 and 9, and I've started cooking for them, and I just started cooking all the meals. And what I found out is a funny thing is that in our freezer, we actually had all this exotic meat. Bison, venison, duck. I have no idea why we had all this meat, and I started cooking all this exotic meat, and then a month in, I was like, wait a minute, I cannot eat like this. This is ridiculous. Duck fat is crazy.
Right? So eventually, I started, it's also you have kids and at least you eat it with your entire family. There's 4 of you total.
Yes.
It's just me. When I make an entire recipe of braised short ribs, and then it's 8 meals for me alone because I'm the only one eating it. So I had to kind of pull it back after a while once, my mind was wrapped around the fact that this is how we're living now. So I started waking up earlier, a little bit earlier, not too early, making healthier meals, making, homemade tea so I don't touch the wine immediately every day. I started, I reorganized my furniture, so I do, daily workouts now. It's still really challenging in a tiny apartment, but with the Obey app, I just do, 28 minutes a day, and it's done. It's on my TV, and I had to get used to it.
I felt like the drinking part of it was a new thing that my friends and I were doing just because we thought it was just a very around-the-way sneaky thing to do because we only had this limited time. And after a while, you find yourself cracking open a beer at 3 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. Yeah, and you don't need to do that anymore.
Yeah, once that, taking it out on the drinks is out of your system, then you're like, okay, well, let's figure out a better way to live.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've started taking walks, which has been a very huge eye-opener for me, and just simply walking around my neighborhood. There are so many cool things. I didn't realize that there was a small community garden in a high school that were growing their own organic vegetables. And we went in for a tour, my kids and I, and they asked if we wanted to help for the rest of the summer, and we would have vegetables. Of course, my kids declined because they don't want to do gardening. But it was just a cool.
That sounds so fun.
No,
Of
it was
course,
a cool.
kids don't want
It's
to
a cool
do
thing.
it. I
It's
want
a
to
cool
do it.
thing. Okay, Sarah, media. What books, movies, TV shows did you consume during this time?
A lot. I feel like I finished Netflix.
All of Netflix is
Well,
done.
I don't watch reality shows, but
Okay.
there's like, you can't, you have a type, so you don't watch everything. But I also, at the same time, like I said before, like I have TV on all the time because it brings movement and livelihood into the plays. Doesn't necessarily mean it's things you want to watch. It just makes sound in the background, or it's things that I've already seen.
Yes.
So that plays during the day, nothing valuable. But then, there are other better shows out there that I want to actually sit down and watch. So that would keep those for dinner time or like nighttime. I had to increase my streaming services from, Apple, Hulu, Netflix to add Stars and add CBS to the packages. Like, just because there's nothing else left to watch, and I think I'm at the time where I'm like finishing those now. There's nothing left to watch on TV, and nothing new is being filmed, so like...
That is true.
We're at that point. So for me, TV was a thing, but other than that, right before the quarantine, I heard that you could borrow books from the New York Public Library for free if you have a New York State license on your Kindle.
Yes.
So I didn't know that. Like, I was just like,
Kindles.
I'm not going and picking up a physical book and, like, forgetting to return it. Like, I don't have time for that. But once I figured out the Kindle thing, I was like, I can't believe I got so lucky. I did it right before the quarantine. But it's a new system. So, like, going through there, like, figuring out what the holds and the wish list and all that stuff
Exactly.
is. And what they
Same.
have. Like, figuring that out was a fun process. So, like, I ended up adding a lot more wish list items. The old classics are not always like on a wait list versus like the new ones are.
That's good.
So I wrote a lot more I read a lot more books. I do the Goodreads challenge every year where you set
What's
a number
that?
of books.
Oh, yes. Okay.
You say that, okay, in the beginning of the year, it's like you say, I'm going to read this many books, and I fail every single year. I start strong, and then by the end of the year, it's like, oops, so that didn't go anywhere. So right now, I'm ahead for the first time of my
Oh,
goals.
wow. That's great.
So I try to read every night, at least, before I go to sleep.
That is wonderful.
So that's one thing. And I made a conscious decision to change my social media consumption to more artists' accounts and more positive messaging accounts and not things that are going to, cynical, toxic memes. I got rid of all that.
You don't want things that are going to
Watching other artists post their work made me actually buy this gouache kit and start painting, which was an interesting... I didn't do it thinking that I was going to start doing that. It just... Watching other people's work made me feel like, okay, I want to do that. I want to do something like that. So those have been my media consumption. Like, difference in how much TV I watch, which is a lot more. A lot more reading. And a different Instagram consumption, which in turn became more productive.
I could see that. So on the TV front... Because of my kids, I've been forced to watch a lot of kids shows. So many kids shows that I would obviously typically not watch. But what made it interesting is that I finally got to see what they truly watch. And it's a lot of, they revamped all pretty much the cartoons that I've consumed when I was a kid and made new versions of everything.
Instead of coming up with new stuff,
it's just more glossier, the subject matter is actually quite interesting. I mean, I don't know if we should be naming shows, but there's one in particular that is much more young adult than I remembered it to be, which was fine. I don't think the subject matter was above my kids' heads. In terms of books, I started looking into my own library. Since libraries were closed, and I did figure out the app to reserve books. The kids started reserving books. But for me, I just started looking at all of my old art books and just trying to draw new inspiration from old lookbooks, old comic books, old photography books, to even old manuals. One in particular had really cool illustrations on how to work a manual camera. And I thought, oh, these are cool. Like, this is what I need now. And I discovered all this stuff in my own library.
Interesting. So more creative books, not as much novels or fiction.
The thing with the reading, so I read to my kids. So I actually started reading, I'm just going to say because I love Roald Dahl. And we have a whole Roald Dahl collection. So I started rereading the BFG, Boy, Matilda, James and the Giant Peach. So that has been my reading.
That's cool.
Which is fabulous because I love him. Yeah.
Interesting. Changes how like your focus is kids media.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
And then your grown up version is more visual and creative.
But in terms of the challenge, I used to give myself a challenge every year to read one big Russian author. Every year I would go in and I'm like, okay, I'm going to read Pushkin, Onegin. I'm going to read Dostoevsky, the Brothers Karamazov. And thank goodness I don't do that anymore.
That's heavy stuff.
It's, yeah.
I mean, that's the one thing I liked with the New York Library thing was like classics like I've always wanted to read Blue Nights, John Didion's Blue Nights, because it talks about the New York summertime, this particular light. That's why it's called Blue Nights. You don't remember buying it, or like you don't remember to buy it, and like it's it's in the back of your mind, but because the new and popular books are on hold, and you have to wait your turn to get them, I had to go back and see like what classics have I been wanting to read, which kind of changed how I read a little bit. I thought that was interesting to like, based on what you have availability, all of a sudden like I always wanted to, but then if there's a new book, I'm always going to read the new book, and like, oh yeah, I can read Blue Nights whenever.
Yes.
So that was, I did a lot of those. I did read some new ones, but
Well, it's good. I mean, you kept up with your reading. You're consuming media that I feel that is more in tune to where you want your life to be. And the social media, you brought up the social media thing, and I think that's also something that I've done in my feed, where I've just started deleting all extraneous, I'm just going to call it BS.
Yeah.
And I just want a good-looking feed that I can draw inspiration from.
Yes, exactly.
And that's what I started doing as well.
Same.
It's good.
Right now, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we will talk about how all this influenced our creative process.
Hello, and welcome back to Gatsby Fridays. Sarah, what can we offer as advice for staying creative if you're still in quarantine?
I think the most important for me has been letting go of the pressure of productivity. We think that the quarantine gave us all this free time. It's really not that simple. It wasn't like quarantine day one, let's start painting because I've always wanted to do it and I have all this free time.
Yes.
Like it took a little while to wrap your head around it. Like the fact that your day is not going to have errands and places to go. And then there was this all like, oh yeah, Einstein wrote like this theory while he was in quarantine. Do the best you can. And it's like, stop pressuring me. There was this whole
exactly.
Like it's not a productivity challenge. So once I figured out that I really didn't have to do anything if I didn't want to, and I was like, it's up to me to make the best of this time. So once I took that pressure off, I was a lot freer to feel how I want to do, what I want to do, how I want to use this time.
I think it's a good thing to just give yourself the moment, and this is what this forced us all to do. To sit back, quiet if you could, and just listen to what, and this is going to sound a little bit metaphysical, but listen to what your body is telling you and move through that. Like for me, it's not a productivity challenge. For me, it was just sitting back. What do I want to do with my time? And it doesn't have to be specific. Like you took up painting, you took up watercoloring, and I took up paracord braiding only because all I wanted to do was pull myself away from a screen and just work with my hands.
Yeah.
Whatever it was. It would have been painting, it would have been drawing, it would have been sculpture. I just wanted to learn a practical thing and just learn it.
And just playing with your hands and not staring at the screen is therapeutic in its way.
Oh, so helpful.
Part of why I like cooking is the same way, but cooking also, like I said, has its disadvantages of me eating everything that I cook because there's no one else to eat it with me, especially in quarantine. So trying to pull myself away from that, something a little bit more creative and less indulgent was interesting to find out for me.
Are we telling people stay away from their screens. Do more work with your hands.
I mean, that's what got me going, but that doesn't mean that it's good for everyone. Like, maybe somebody needs to spend a different, like, you know, if you're spending time on your screen, is that the best?
I flat out think it's good. It's good advice, though. I think we all can pull away from our screens.
Well, yeah, that's a whole.
That's a whole other conversation. Yeah, I think it's good for us to just lean back a little bit. If you have an opportunity to cook more, which a lot of people have had, if you have an opportunity to garden, if you have an opportunity to do crafts, do more work with your hands. I think that's my advice.
All right. So mine is more, stop pressuring yourself. Do what feels right. If you don't want to move from the couch for one day, don't move from the couch.
That's fine.
It's okay. Like, it's hard to figure out that, you know, like, not being constantly, like, I have all this time. I'm not doing the best I can in this time. It's okay. This is not normal times. We're all figuring it out as we go along.
Exactly.
So my thing was, like, don't pressure yourself, but also, you know, don't just be a lazy bum and do nothing either. Like, you know,
no one wants to be a lazy bum.
Like, I mean, you know, if you want to sit around for 3 days, that's fine. But, like, if you're sitting around for the entire month, eventually you're not going to feel good anyway. So listen to yourself and see what feels good.
Or what you're saying, or what you're saying is to let your mind wander a bit, and don't be concerned about don't be afraid of the wandering.
Yes. It's not about what you produce. It's not about, like, putting it on Instagram and sharing with people and saying, this is what I cooked, this is what I painted. Just do what feels good for you.
It's not a productivity challenge.
Yes.
That is probably good.
That was,
that's
like,
good.
the best, like, okay, you know that, but once you hear it, it's like, oh, that feels good. I don't have to do it if I don't want to. I just want to do things. Of course, everybody wants to do something.
And you want to do things without worrying about what the end result is going to be, and it needs to be something of significance. I mean, one of the things about just the crafts that I've been doing is not, you know, no one in particular, but I'm doing this work, and this needs to sell. And that was never my MO. It was just to do the work. If I sell none of these pieces, I am satisfied with that.
Yeah, I didn't have this, like, meaning behind the things I was painting. I was just painting random shapes, just, like, trying to pick out colors that felt good that day. Like, it wasn't about, okay, is this going to be monetized? Is this going to be, like, popular on Instagram? Is this going to sell? None of that. I just wanted to do something to get out of my head.
My only challenge was to myself to refine my own personal technique. So when I was doing the braiding, I just wanted to make sure that I kept on getting better at technique. So I think, like, when with the watercolor painting, you know, you're blending colors, you're creating shapes. How best can you blend colors?
Yeah,
you know.
I changed how I do. I used to do these. I mean, everybody in watercolor and this type of, like, paint work, you do your own paint swatches. You paint because you paint from the intensity of the color, and you create these swatches and see how it fades in papers, because it's never what comes out of the tube that stays on paper. But I would have them in, like, every square on the same paper. So I did a duplicate one and then cut those up into paint chips, so that when I started new, I would look at the main chart and pick the colors, and then I would take those chips and, like, start playing them against each other.
So it's about ultimately achieving your own personal best.
Yeah, so, like, I improved my own system of, like, even picking colors. But that wasn't, like, trying to improve it. It just kind of, you know, naturally, because I wasn't under this pressure of, oh my God, how many paintings a day? Painting a day. Let's do one painting a day challenge. It's overwhelming. We already have to do so many things a day, even in quarantine. So that it was not about adding one more thing that I have to do, but more like, well, this is not working. How do I do this now? Like, worrying about the productivity aspect of it, I think.
And what I mean by your own, it's what I mean about your own personal best. It's not a challenge outwardly. Yeah. It's your own internal race. I don't even want to call it a race. I feel like learning how to properly do a technique can either take years, it can take days, it can take whatever. But just knowing that I know that I've been able to refine something and keep on refining that. Like when you're working on cooking, all you want to do is keep on refining the recipe until you get it the way you feel its perfection should be. The notion of perfection, not
Yeah.
the perfect outcome of that particular thing.
Yeah, it's not about the outcome. It's about just doing better because you're doing it. I don't know. I personally do better when I know that I'm not just a waste of space.
We all want to be productive to some extent, yes. And
So
then we
then
don't
it
want
just
to...
kind of like, it's part of that. But like I said, that pressure of it is what usually debilitates me. So
Exactly.
because we had this undefined amount of time, I was able to let go of that pressure. And once I did that, that's what made me more creative.
How's the painting coming along?
Well, we moved on to the podcasting, so the painting took a little step backwards for now.
Same.
It's not doing much, but you know.
Do you... a question that I wanted to ask you, because I feel like I am almost at the end of running the course of what that particular hobby was. Like with me with the braiding, I feel like I almost don't need to do it anymore. I don't know if it's out of my system yet, but I haven't. My challenge, my own personal challenge, was one a day. So I've already made 100. So I don't know if I need to make any more keychains. I don't know if I need to make any more lanyards. I don't know. I'm wondering. Like, I'm constantly thinking about color combinations. I'm constantly thinking about influences, and I'm constantly thinking about, oh, how can I make this technique better? What materials should I use?
I mean, you can keep going till the end of time.
I can, but I wonder if I...
Without
I don't know if I need
repeating
to.
yourself. You can still always evolve. Like, when it's a creative process, the thing that usually stops us is a deadline. Because otherwise we'll just keep on creating. You're going to keep on iterating on the same idea and finesse it. But that doesn't also mean that you're just doing a tiny nudge of finessing. Maybe it's like, you started with these ropes. Maybe you changed complete material. You start going into recycled fabrics and turn them into ropes. And then, I don't know. Like, I'm just making it up. But
Like,
there's so much more you can do if you are curious to explore it. If it's still making you feel
but that's what I'm
happy.
saying. Like, I don't know. I wonder if the curiosity is still there within me. Like, I was going to ask you.
Oh, I can always paint.
The question is, when is a piece finished?
When's a piece finished? I feel like when I look at the, I don't know, canvas, paper, or whatever I'm painting on, and it doesn't need another brush stroke, and that's just the feeling. And every piece is different, so it's not something that and there's so much more I can learn about painting techniques because I'm not a professional painter by trade. I just like it as a hobby, and I like keeping it that way because I don't want the pressure of it, the professionalism.
So I think we both have two perspectives, which is great.
Yeah.
Yours is to keep on exploring.
Yes, I'm going to keep on doing that.
And I feel like I wonder if I'm done with this and I want to explore something new.
Well, let's see what comes out of it.
I know, that's good. And now, let's move on to our favorite part of this and every episode, our signature cocktail. Sarah, since you're starting us off, what did you make for us today?
We are going to make a Hibiscus Mezcal Negroni.
Now, what was the inspiration for this?
So this came from about my daily quarantine drinking habits.
Yes, as many of us were doing.
There was this. I ran into this article on bonappetit.com about how this editor started doing the hibiscus tea instead of her daily aperitif Negronis. And the hibiscus tea is really bitter in flavor and it's tart. So it has that intensity. So I was like, oh, that's a great idea. I should do those teas and drink less. But then, it tasted better with mezcal. So it went back into being a cocktail.
Now, you call it a Negroni. I think we need to kind of define what a traditional Negroni would entail. What are the ingredients?
So traditional Negroni has gin and Campari in it. Campari is a Italian bitter. It's bright red and it's a little syrupy, but it's bitter.
It's a cool bottle.
Yeah.
Looks good on film.
So this is far from the classic recipe. It just has that feel to it. Instead of gin, we're doing mezcal. It has that smoky, intense flavor. And instead of the Campari, we're using the hibiscus tea.
So Sarah, how do you make this?
You start by making the tea concentrate. You boil a lot of hot water and you 4 parts to 1 part the hibiscus tea leaves, which I bought from Amazon. It's a
Yes.
gigantic bag, 1 pound. I think I'm good for the rest of the year. There's a lot of recipes
1 pound
online.
bag? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
I bought a 1 pound
Wow.
bag. I know.
Okay.
Well, it's organic, full flowers, uncut, and everything. So there's a lot of ways that you can do the hibiscus tea concentrate. There's different recipes. People put vanilla in it. I like a little bit of cinnamon stick in there to give it a little bit of fragrance, which I think is what makes it more like Campari and less like cream soda. And honey to taste. I don't like things too sweet, so I don't put too much honey in it.
Yes.
And a little bit of orange peel because it's almost on the border of an Campari to Aperol feel to it a little bit.
Is
there.
it for garnish or is it?
No,
is it
it's for you're brewing the tea here, so it's not for garnish. This
Okay,
actually
for
gives it a little bit
flavor.
of flavor and fragrance, a little
Nice.
citrus feel to it. So you make sure that brews and gets cold, and then you refrigerate it. And then that's the concentrate. So you always dilute it either with water. Sometimes I just use it with sparkling water, whatever. So that's
Nice.
your Campari base. Like, you just have to make that first. Once you have the concentrate, you have your aperitif daily with that.
Now, do you make this as a single drink, or is this something that you can create
I mean,
a large volume to share?
You could make a pitcher.
Okay.
I make it one by one because
I wanna
it's just
try
me. I make one by one because it's just me, but it's never one is never enough. So, like, let's be clear.
We're just saying.
Just because I make
We're
it one
just
at a
saying.
time.
Yes.
So it's 1 part mezcal to 1 part the tea concentrate, lime juice to taste. You can add orange twist for garnish. So this orange peel is for garnish, and I top it with a little sparkling water because I like that fizziness. And my sparkling water, in very particular, I like Italian sodas, like sparkling soda, where it's got a little more minerally taste. I'm not talking about club soda.
It's like Campari
Like-
and an Italian mineral water.
Yeah,
is
so
set.
it's a little Pellegrino, or like
Okay.
when it says Italian sparkling soda, it has a more minerally taste, and I think that really makes a difference. And it's, how much watered down you want it, how much sparkles you want in your cocktail. I just like to top it off a little bit because it lightens it up. So because it's also concentrate, the tart flavor is
Now, is
strong.
it important? I feel like did you
So
go
you mix
out?
all the ingredients and you strain it over into rocks in a highball glass.
Nice. Excellent. Well, it sounds delicious, and I would love to try it.
So exactly. So this is this is what I've been drinking all quarantine.
I love it. I love it. Everyone should try it. Thank you for hanging with us. For a list of books, films, TV shows, and more, hop onto our site, GATSBYFridays.com.
You can also find the Hibiscus Mezcal Negroni recipe on our site.
If you want to leave a comment, suggest show topics, get at us on our site.
Or our Instagram at Gatsby Fridays. And don't miss out on new episodes by signing up for our newsletter on the website.
And stay with us. For our next episode, we'll discuss race and creative profession. This is Gatsby Fridays.